My father told everyone his war medals were lost in a move. After the funeral, I found the pawn ticket in his Bible, dated the week my tuition was due. The medals came up at every holiday. My Uncle Vernon always asked about them, and my father always gave the same answer. They got lost in the move, he'd say. 91. When we left the old house, Box never showed up. A bronze star doesn't just vanish, Arthur. Boxes vanish. That's what boxes do. I was 19 when we had that particular version of the argument, home from my first semester, and I remember thinking my father was a careless man. He kept receipts for tires he'd bought in 1985, but somehow lost the only things the Army ever gave him for nearly dying. He died in October. Stroke in the garage, holding a wrench. My mother had been gone 6 years by then, so it fell to me to clear out the house. I found the Bible in his nightstand. He wasn't a religious man in any way I ever saw. Never prayed at the table, never once mentioned church, so the Bible surprised me. It was worn soft at the spine. I opened it to see if he'd written anything inside, and a slip of paper fell out onto the bed. A pawn ticket. Yellow, brittle, folded twice. I unfolded it. The shop was called Delmar Loan and Jewelry, an address on the east side of town. The description of the item was written in a clerk's tight hand, military medals, assorted, 1 bronze star. The date was August 28, 1994. I sat down on his bed because my legs weren't reliable anymore. August of 1994 was the month I started college. I knew the date without having to think because I'd spent that whole summer terrified we wouldn't make it work. My father was a machinist. The plant had cut his hours that spring, and I'd overheard a phone call in July where he told someone, low, that he was working on it. The tuition bill had been due the first week of September. I remembered because I'd called the financial aid office myself, panicking, and the woman told me the account had been paid in full. I'd assumed a loan came through. I never asked. You don't interrogate good news when you're 18. I called Uncle Vernon that night. You found the ticket, he said. Not a question. You knew. There was a long breath on the line. I knew he did something. I didn't know he'd kept the ticket. Vernon, tell me what happened. Your dad came to me in August of 94. Asked to borrow 4 grand. I didn't have it. I was underwater myself that year, you remember. I told him no, and I've hated myself for it ever since. He stopped. 2 weeks later, the medals were lost in the move. We hadn't moved. Nobody had moved. I did the math, and I never said a word because he looked at me one time across the table, and I understood I was never to say a word. I drove to the east side the next morning. Delmar Loan and Jewelry was still there, wedged between a check-cashing place and a shuttered laundromat. A man in his 60s stood behind bulletproof glass. I slid the ticket through the slot. This is from 1994. You're Arthur's boy. I hadn't said my name. He came in every year, the man said. Every August, same week. Paid the interest to keep the medals from going up for sale. Never enough to redeem them outright. He'd have needed the full loan back all at once, and he never had it. So he paid the vig. 30 years. Kept them off the floor. 30 years. My voice came out wrong. Last payment was this past August. He turned to a cabinet behind him, unlocked it, and took out a small box wrapped in a shop rag. He told me if he ever missed a year, it meant he died, and I was to hold these for his son. I've been wondering when you'd come. He passed the box through the slot. Inside were the medals. The ribbon on the bronze star had gone soft and faded, but the star itself still caught the light. Under it, folded to the size of a stamp, was a note in my father's handwriting. 4 words. Worth it. Don't tell. He never told anyone he'd sold the proudest thing he owned to keep me in school. He'd rather everyone believe he was a careless man who lost boxes than let me carry the weight of what it cost. And he'd paid, every single August of my adult life, a little more than he could afford to buy back the lie one more year, so that if I ever found out, I'd at least find the medals waiting and not an empty shelf. I had thanked him for that tuition exactly once, offhand, at a graduation dinner, assuming a loan. He'd smiled and told me not to worry about it, said it was nothing.